Welcome to Being at Home with George. I'm excited to be here, and we want to start the way we normally start, which is embrace, say yes to whatever comes up, and to generate the hope. And so I'd like to talk about pain, specifically, how can we embrace pain, say yes to it, and generate the hope so that we can deal with it or relate to it in a certain way. So early on in my recovery, I learned this phrase from 12 step recovery, but I understand it's been mentioned in different arenas beyond the recovery scene. And the saying is pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. And so, what does this mean? And I know from studying from the Buddhist perspective, the Buddha gave this talk about the two darts theory, like dart, D-A-R-T. So if you get hit with a dart, that's pain. And then there's a second dart that comes from the suffering or the anguish or the reaction to the pain or the thoughts about the pain beyond the bare sensations of pain, but the thinking that happens. Because what happens is when we have pain, this even the word pain, it has this reactivity in the body, and then we're actually getting intense, we're actually grasping or pushing it away. There's an aversion to it. We want to get away from it. The last thing we want to do is embrace it. We want to avoidance because the nervous system is programmed to approach what is pleasant and avoid what is unpleasant, to have aversion. And so this idea of, yeah, we have the initial pain and how to relate to that initial pain in a way where we don't make it into suffering. So Robert Frost, the great poet, said, the only way out is always through. And so when you combine that with the Buddhist understanding that we got to focus on the initial pain or the first dart. And so for me, I got into this because of chronic pain. I would get migraine headaches and chronic back pain. And one of the things I had to learn from the chronic pain perspective, especially around my migraines, is that I would start slowly and then build up to a crescendo. And no matter what drugs I took or whatever, it just didn't do anything with the pain. So I learned how to deal with it on the bare level of sensation when it started to arise. I could feel this kind of pulsing or whatever. So I practice what we talk about in terms of bare awareness and bare attention, is to be able to be aware of the bare sensation. So it's the pain and feeling the throbbing, and I would just breathe. But to me, what it was telling me, the body was telling me, was that I was trying to do too many things and I needed to slow down. So I would have to go into a quiet room and just lay down on the bed or sit and just be aware of breathing and just focusing on the bare sensations, allowing myself to feel the sensations, the pulsing, the twisting, the burning, whatever. And just by relating to it in a certain way, it didn't get better in the sense of it didn't go away, but I noticed it as just bare sensations. And by doing that, I wasn't in the story about it and I wasn't fanning the flames. I wasn't creating more anguish because there's the initial pain, but then there's our interpretation of what it means. And then we start getting in the story about it and then it makes it worse rather than just noticing it on the level of bare sensation. So whether it's a migraine headache or if you have some other pain in your arm, I know an associate of mine has some arm pain going on. So just being able to notice what is it to go into the body and to feel it on the level of bare sensation and just seeing this twisting, burning, or tightness or pressure. And you notice that it doesn't stay the same. It actually moves from one thing to the other. Because in the days when I had chronic pain, I would say I was in pain all day yesterday, when in actuality, that wasn't true. I had some moments of pain, but then I just had stories about it. And then once I started seeing it on the bare sensation level, and this could be even emotional pain, let's just go with emotional pain, where we're feeling frustration or anger or loss, that we can just go to wherever it is. So the chest is tight because we're dealing with anxiety. We can just notice it on the level of bare sensation and just be with it, breathe with it, and allow the sensations to be there and to see it on the level of sensation. So to embrace it, generate the hope, but also just to create space around it. And then what happened is we noticed that it moves and that it's on a level of sensation. I'm not thinking about it and creating suffering. And so it's really that simple. The suffering is a result or the inability to embrace, say yes to it, and then learn from it, just allow it to speak to us. But at the same time, noticing that it doesn't last all day. There's moments of it, but then there's moments when there's not pain. And so those moments that are not pain, they can actually grow. So from my experience, that's how I got into this, was noticing how to relate to my pain on a bare level of sensation and not in the sensation of the story, the sensationalizing of the experience and making it like a novel or maybe an epic piece. And so that's the lesson here, is that when pain comes, and even not calling it pain, but just going to the idea of, okay, this is the sensation and describing it on a bare level of sensation and noticing it like anything else. It comes and goes, it gets stronger, it gets less. But the whole idea is to get it out of the story, out of the suffering, because that's where the suffering comes, so that we can just feel the bare sensation and we can embrace it and recognize, have the experience that the only way out is always through.